apparently Dillian Whyte is in a legal battle with the WBC. He's trying to get himself made full champion and Tyson Fury champion in recess. I don't know whether that's going to happen. I suspect it won't. Dillian Whyte is very doggedly determined in his pursuit of that particular goal. I don't rate the WBC in terms of integrity. There are a couple of things that they do that I like, but overall, they're one of the most scummy organizations, and certainly Mauricio Sulaiman in recent days and weeks has taken his level of scumbaggery to new lows. Dillian Whyte is pursuing that, but he's still not going to hang about. He wants to stay active. Eddie Hearn is talking about putting Dillian Whyte in the ring in October against perhaps Chris Arreola or Andy Ruiz. Now, I like both those fights. I wouldn't have liked the Chris Arreola fight up until Chris Arreola fought Andy Ruiz, because he showed he had far more left than I imagined. And I think he showed that to a lot of people. I expected the Andy Ruiz fight to be relatively one-sided. I didn't think Chris Arreola would give him any problems. I thought Chris Arreola was completely washed, but he got himself into the best shape I've ever seen him in his entire professional career. Utterly bizarre for Chris Arreola at his age, 40 I believe he is, or 41, to finally get himself in shape. I mean, this guy's fought for the title several times and couldn't get himself into that kind of shape. But he fights Andy Ruiz, a fellow Mexican. I guess it's the Mexican pride, right? A fellow Mexican-American. The bragging rights in their community, that meant more to him than the World Heavyweight Championship and the biggest checks, clearly. Because if it didn't, he wouldn't have got himself into that kind of condition. So the Chris Arreola fight now is a lot more interesting to me than it would have been prior the Ruiz bout. With that being said, can Chris Arreola get himself as motivated to fight Dillian Whyte as he was to fight Andy Ruiz? That's a question, because if we get the Chris Arreola who turned up against, let's say, Deontay Wilder, I don't really see him giving Dillian Whyte too many issues. But if the guy who turned up to fight Andy Ruiz turns up against Dillian Whyte, then we might get a pretty interesting bout. One which I would still expect Dillian Whyte to win, but it wouldn't necessarily be particularly easy. Now, the Andy Ruiz fight is one which I've always liked, and I've always felt that Andy Ruiz would win. But again, in light of what happened against Chris Arreola, Andy Ruiz looked far more vulnerable than we've seen him before. Some people are talking about the weight loss might have affected his punch resistance. I mean, I don't know about that. His punch resistance may have been affected. I think it probably has, or potentially has, but I wouldn't really go with the weight loss for that. I think it might be punishment in sparring, punishment in some of his fights. Maybe it's the time out the ring. When you've been out the ring a long time and you haven't been hit with the small gloves, it can be a shock to your system. All of a sudden, you're getting hurt with shots that, when you were more active, were not hurting you. So you have to get used to taking the punishment again. And of course, it's been a while now since Andy Ruiz fought Chris Arreola. So if he was to fight Dillian Whyte, how long will he have been out the ring by then? All kinds of questions that would need to be answered. So, yeah, the Dillian Whyte, Andy Ruiz fight, would I still favor Andy Ruiz? Maybe I would still favor him, but I see it as closer now than I did prior to that Chris Arreola fight. But I'll probably still favor Andy Ruiz. Not that I don't think Dillian Whyte can win it. He can definitely win it. But if Andy Ruiz's punch resistance is not the same, it definitely evens things up in my mind. Because Ruiz is very quick. He has never been defensively blessed, so he does get hit. But he'd always shown a real rock solid chin prior to that Arreola fight. And I always felt like if he can walk Dillian Whyte down, land combinations, hurt Dillian Whyte, because Whyte has been hurt in fight after fight for years now. He just keeps getting hurt. Marius Wack hurt him. You know? He was obviously dropped by Joseph Parker. Hurt by Robert Hallet. He just keeps getting hurt. And I felt like if all these guys are hurting him, then Andy Ruiz is going to catch him at some point when they fight, and he's going to hurt him too. And Ruiz is much faster. Apart from, let's say, Joseph Parker, he's faster than everybody else that Dillian Whyte fought and got hurt by. And he's a better finisher. I would say Andy Ruiz is a much better finisher than Joseph Parker. If he gets you going, he's going to go for it. So, anyway, I like both fights. And ultimately, look, I'm talking here about who I think would win between Andy Ruiz and Dillian Whyte. That's indicative of the fact that it's a good fight in my mind, a fight I want to see. I don't just want to see fights where I feel like I know the outcome beforehand. No, I want to see fights where I'm not sure of the outcome. And Dillian Whyte, Andy Ruiz is one of those fights. Yes, slightly favor Ruiz. Slightly now, as opposed to prior to the Arreola fight where I want to say strongly favored Ruiz. Now it's only slightly. That makes the fight even more intriguing to me. That there's that element of doubt in my mind about who's going to win the fight. I'm really not sure. I might say 55-45 in Ruiz's favor in my head. So, yeah, you let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Dillian Whyte against Andy Ruiz or Chris Arreola. Now, the Ruiz fight to me is more dangerous than the Arreola fight. And you have to wonder why Dillian Whyte would do that, given what happened against Povetkin. Yeah, got knocked out badly the first time, came back and stopped Povetkin in the second fight. Is he going to keep on fighting tough fighters, dangerous fighters, up until he gets a title shot? If he does, kudos to him for being a risk taker. And of course, Dillian Whyte is self-managed. So you can't really point at his management and say, what are you doing? You should be more careful than this. This is irresponsible. No, he's self-managed. I'm sure Eddie Hearn would like to get Dillian Whyte that world heavyweight title fight against Tyson Fury, you know, or Deontay Wilder. I say Deontay Wilder because if Dillian Whyte was able to get Tyson Fury demoted to champion in recess or champion emeritus, then it would be Dillian Whyte versus Wilder for the WBC belt. I hope I didn't say a shot against Wilder. Wilder was champion for so long that, you know, sometimes I forget that he's still not WBC champion. But yeah, him against Wilder would be for the full title if Tyson Fury was made champion emeritus or recess, whatever you want to call it. So lots of good fights out there for Dillian Whyte. But does he want to keep taking these risks? I mean, it's also damaging him physically, right? When you're having all these tough fights against all these tough guys, it shortens your career. You're not going to be able to go on as long if you're taking all this damage, getting hurt all the time. The fighters with the greatest longevity are the fighters who have, and generally speaking, the least number of wars, who take the least damage. They're the ones who are able to go on for year after year. How close is Dillian Whyte to his prime right now? Is he at his prime? Is his prime yet to come? Has he passed his prime? I saw some people in my Discord server discussing this. So let me know what you guys think. Is Dillian Whyte close to his prime, at his prime, or past his prime? And how do you see his career panning out from here on? Do you think he's going to get this WBC shot? Do you think that he's going to be able to win this legal battle with the WBC and get Tyson Fury demoted to champion emeritus and then himself elevated to full champion and then defend against Deontay Wilder or whoever else? Do you think he's going to be able to do this? I rate Dillian Whyte's bloody-mindedness, his tenacity, his focus, his drive. I rate that. Because this is not a guy, as I've mentioned in previous videos, this is not a guy who is the most athletically gifted fighter you've seen. I mean, some people would say that about Andy Ruiz, but Andy Ruiz has got tremendous hand speed. Dillian Whyte doesn't have hand speed like that. Yeah, he's a big, strong guy. He's powerful. But there are loads of guys who are big and strong and powerful in boxing. There are journeymen who are big, strong, and powerful. Okay? Dillian Whyte's good understanding of the mechanics of boxing. He's got a pretty good boxing brain. He's applied that. He's built himself up. He's used his physical strength, his punching power, and all this kind of stuff. But above all else, it's Dillian Whyte's mindset that has allowed him to, I guess you could say, be an overachiever. It's his mindset. This is a pure fighter. This is a guy who goes in there for absolute carnage and war every time. This is somebody who refuses to be intimidated. So I have to rate that. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Come and join me on Patreon and access my weekly no-holds-barred, censorship-free podcast where we lift the lid on a wide range of controversial topics. It's not mainstream friendly, it's not politically correct, but that's the whole point. We dare to stand as a beacon of reason against an army of insanity. Just head on over to my Patreon page and select the tier called Hatman Hot Topics. You'll gain access to a minimum of 2 hours of exclusive content every single week, including podcasts, videos, interviews, live stream Q&A sessions, as well as my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. Not to mention a vast back catalog of hundreds of hours of previous episodes. You can listen via the Patreon app with the option to download in high quality MP3. We've also got a Discord server where you can come and chat and hang out with myself and other members. There's no contract, no commitment, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of free and critical thinkers by signing up with me here on Patreon today.